I'm joined now by Christy Kemp, a consultant for MetLife's Global Technology and Operations Group. Christy is also a communications officer in the U.S. Army Reserves. Her last deployment was to Kuwait in 2004 as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. We're also joined by Josh Biber. Josh is a project manager for IT infrastructure at MetLife. Before joining MetLife, Josh served in the Air Force for 8 years, where he traveled to a number of locations, both in the U.S. and internationally, including several active deployments to Afghanistan. Christy and Josh, welcome to Hiring America.
Thanks.
Thank you. Josh, tell us about MetLife.
So it started in the Civil War as a limited life insurance policy for Civil War veterans or Civil War military members. And even now, we primarily deal with life insurance. So we kind of give them that promise that in the worst times, MetLife is going to be there to help you out of it. And that's very similar to what we've experienced in the military. The military is training on a daily basis, and most people in America don't realize that. But when they need it, when they're in that crisis, the military responds.
How many employees at MetLife are veterans?
It's tough to say. Within Raleigh, there's probably around 40, maybe even more. One of the things is you have to self-identify as being a veteran. So some people just want to go about their daily business, and other people have that calling to kind of continue on.
What do you do at MetLife, Christy?
I am a process improvement consultant, and what that means is I take a look at the way that people do work and find ways that we can do things faster or better or in a more economical fashion.
Do you find that you're able to use a lot of the skills that you acquired in the military in this position?
Oh, most definitely. The biggest skill that I use is my influencing skills, and that's with getting a bunch of people to go along in a direction that they may not necessarily want to go along with.
Josh, tell me a little bit about the transition. It was quite a quick transition from you, right from the military into a job at MetLife.
Yes, that's correct. My last day in the Air Force was technically August 4th of this summer, and I started at MetLife July 28th. So I did have a little overlap there, and I was very fortunate where I could transition directly from the Air Force into MetLife. I did have a friend who reached out from MetLife. They knew they were moving to Raleigh, and he knew I was getting out of the military. And he valued having veterans and diversity within the company, so he asked if I was interested in a job. Fortunately, the military has a process in place called Transition Assistance Program, where if you don't have a job signed up already, they help you with resume writing and possibly finding networks where you can convert your military skills to applicable civilian skills as well.
Did you realize these are the military skills I have that can translate really well into the civilian workforce?
No, that was kind of a struggle. I flew aircraft for 8 years in the military, and there's not a direct translation to the civilian world unless you want to continue to fly, which I did not want to do. So I had to realize what other aspects did military training provide me which relate to the civilian world. Some of that was leadership skills that I had as being an officer for 8 years, and the professional education I had through the military. So I was able to translate those skills to a project manager job within MetLife. And it's also important for military members to realize that they don't have to directly relate their job into the civilian world. If you're an infantry officer, you're not going to be an infantry officer in the real world, but you do have other skills that are applicable.
So, Christy, tell me about your military experience.
Well, I went into the Army directly out of college. I was in the Signal Corps, which is in charge of communications and computers, and I spent several years active duty doing that, and I actually still continue to do that. And as you know, the communications industry is evolving, and the Army is evolving with that, and it gives me the opportunity to work with a lot of cool technologies.
You're in the Army Reserves, you're working full-time. How do you balance both?
Well, MetLife is actually really great. They're one of the better employers that I've seen as far as allowing for veterans to take time to serve. I serve a couple of times a year for extended periods of time, and they allow for it.
And tell me how you are able to translate the skill sets that you acquired in the military and bring that into the office.
Well, like Josh said, there are a lot of things that we do that you don't realize actually relate very well into the office environment. The managing people, the managing schedules, the having to coordinate a lot of things all at the same time. Those skills all translate very well into the office environment.
And what challenges did you face once you landed the job, which is a challenge enough, right? When you actually step into the office, what challenges do you face?
Well, the first thing I had to face was what I was going to wear every day, because I didn't have a uniform anymore.
I can imagine. That could be quite difficult when you're used to that.
But you do have to learn a different language. You know, in the military we use lots of acronyms. We also use lots of acronyms in MetLife, but they all mean different things. The biggest challenge for me was that my wife was also active duty military, and we both separated from the military at the same time. So there was no more deployments for either of us, so I'm also getting used to having her home on a daily basis, which has been a delightful struggle to have.
And how does MetLife recruit?
MetLife recruits in several different ways. They do recruit at universities, they recruit through their website, and they recruit at job fairs. So there's many different ways that you can get involved and get in touch with MetLife.
And one thing that's great about MetLife is even within Raleigh, we have a specific HR rep who deals with veterans and veteran placement and jobs. So when you identify as a veteran, they will direct you to the HR rep and help you specifically.